Hello, hello, everyone. I'm just going to wait a minute for everyone to tune in. Looks like we've got quite a few people filtering on through. It's nice to see you all. While we're waiting, probably until 2:01 Eastern, it would be awesome if you could all let us know where you're tuning in from. So I'm tuning in from Greenville, South Carolina. I'm going to go ahead and type that in the chat. It would be awesome to know where everyone else is tuning in from. Got Rachel in Hagerstown, Maryland, William in Madison, Wisconsin, Jonathan in Atlanta, Georgia, Nehemiah in Charlotte, North Carolina. We got Tim in Delaware, Nikki in Rockford, Juliana in Johnson City, Marie in Spokane. I'm still getting used to all of these American city names, so I'm really sorry. We've got Michelle in Ohio, Donna and Michelle in Ohio. We've got Matt and Lincoln. Great. Looks like Rachel's excited to see Jonathan. And we've also got Stacey in Texas. Thanks for letting us know where you're tuning in from. Welcome to all of the folks that are new to these masterclasses, and hello again for those of you who are returning from last time. So the Q&A is going to be open for the entire session. So please feel free to add any questions that you have that go along. We'll be presenting for about 20 minutes, and there'll be about 10 minutes to go through questions. We're speaking about the complete guide to listing, so how to reach your listing goals and increase your sell-through rate using these strategies. So I'm assuming that there will be a lot of questions. So please do input them as they go along, and of course the chat's open. While we're presenting, I won't be looking at the chat just because I personally find I get distracted by it, but I will be checking it out at the end. So feel free to chat in there and I'll check it out at the end. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Laurie Clark, and I'm the Vice President of Customer Experience for both Neatoscan and Upright Labs. So I support the Upright customer success and services, and Neatoscan auctions, books, and sorted maintenance. And I really, really love supporting the various types of clients we have across both of the products. Jonathan Conda is the Manager of Customer Success for Upright Labs. So if you've ever interacted with the Upright Labs Lister or Link products, you'll likely have been trained or supported by Jonathan and his team. And he's also featured in our YouTube product training. So you've probably seen his face and voice there as well. So today we're going to be speaking about the key levers to increase the revenue that you generate through e-commerce. So first, we'll be talking about why listing volume is important and when to focus on decreasing that time to list. And then Jonathan's going to be diving into how to increase price per item and sell-through rates based on your warehouse capacity. And last but certainly, but like not least, we're going to be sharing a specific listing strategy if you're on Upright Labs, or a pricing profile if you're on Neatoscan, that is proven to increase price per item and sell-through rates based on analysis completed by our services team. So you're definitely going to want to stick around for that, because that is a question we get asked quite a bit. So as many of you already know, there are three main levers that you can utilize to increase the amount of revenue that you generate through your e-commerce department. So first up, price per item, and then we've got volume, and then we've got your sell-through rate. So what you focus on first is very much determined by your product flow and your business model. I'll give you an example. If you have a lot of books or a lot of clothing, it's likely that you're going to need to focus on volume a lot more. The reason being is that the margin may be a little bit lower, and you still want some sort of margin so that you have more, obviously, money to put into your mission. Most of you are nonprofit, so you want more revenue to put into your mission. So you're going to be focusing on that time to list, so reducing that time to list, and the amount of times that your staff actually touch the product as well. You really want to minimize that. And then let's just say you are in a really affluent area, so you get a lot of brand products, or maybe you just get a whole bunch of art where you are, then you're probably going to be focused on price per item. Maybe it's okay for you to evaluate these items a little bit more, but the price per item is what you'll be wanting to optimize for. And of course, sell-through rate is important for everyone. We don't want our stores sending us items and then us processing all the items, storing all the items. just for, salvage obviously is important as well, but ideally we want to increase that sell-through rate. So first up, what I'll be focusing on in the first part of this presentation is volume. So how we're going to increase that volume. So firstly, you're going to want to do a little bit of an operational checklist before you move into optimizing for the software. So the first thing you're going to be looking at is your warehouse space. This obviously determines how much you can hold. The larger your warehouse, the more items you can hold. But the second thing you're going to look at is how they're stored. So, our services team and a lot of our customer facing teams see many different methods of holding different items. And that's going to be the next thing you're going to look at if you're wanting to increase your volume. Let's just say you've maxed out your space. You want to take a look at how that's stored. We're not going to be providing tips on that today, but that's just a first place for you to go and take a look at. Second is looking at your staff capacity. So if you were at the previous session where we were speaking about your talent and organizational efficiency, then you will have seen the time study. We will be providing a slide at the end of this presentation where you can scan a QR code to look at that. But the next thing you're going to want to do operationally before we look at the software is see where your staff are located within your facility. So do you have too many staff at the processing stage or the tagging stage? Do you not have enough staff at the listing stage? This is going to help you optimize your workflow to be able to get more volume through, identifying those bottlenecks. Also, for the Goodwill folks, if you were at the conference a week or two ago, we spoke about that as well, but you can definitely look at that review for a more detailed run through. And then lastly, as I mentioned earlier, product flow is going to determine what you optimize for. So your product flow is going to determine whether you're focusing on volume or whether you're focusing on that price per item. So, we're third-party software that helps you list items faster. So removing those repeatable tasks by focusing on the software is going to be really important for you all. And there's a few different ways you can do this, whether you're in the Upright Labs software or the Neatoscan software. So first, to remove repeatable tasks, and just to illustrate this, we pulled some data, and for full-time listers, it was 64 listings per lister per day was the average. So that was the average if you're a full-time lister. If you can imagine that your lister was typing an extra 2 words, that lister's typing an extra 2 words 64 times every single hour, every single day over 365 days, probably less than that, but over the entire year. And that's just one lister. If you've got 4 listers, that's an additional amount of time. So anything that they're doing that they need to repeat actually reduces the amount of listings that you can put through. So we always want to be looking at removing those repeatable tasks. The best way to do that on Upright Labs is through builder templates. A lot of our clients get default templates from us, but we recommend to be looking at these pretty frequently, not every day, but at least like once a month or once every 3 months, and identify those words or phrases that your listers are repeating over and over again and needing to physically type so they don't come from the automatic template. And then what you're going to want to do is add checkboxes for the long repeatable phrases. So a good example here is if you have an electronics department and you mention that they're tested and they're good to go, that might be a sentence. So you want to add a checkbox that completes that sentence for them. The last thing you want to do here with builder templates is to remove anything on the screen that is not going to be needed for their job. So in this example that's on the screen, you'll see a little checkbox that says include material. And if we check this, then a whole bunch of other inputs become available. So you're going to want to remove stuff so that their focus isn't too spread out on each listing to reduce that time to list. What this looks like in real life, so you can see this is my little example here, and there's a whole bunch of different inputs. So we've got brand, we've got style, we've got item condition. This is the builder template itself and the example And I'm just filling out a whole bunch of different phrases here. You can even see there's a checkbox for is this a vintage purse as well, which is what I just spoke about as those further ones. And now I'm scrolling down, you can see just by inputting those different things, it's built out the title and it's built out the description. So that's the example of adding, removing tasks for them that may be repeatable. And on the Neatoscan side, you're going to do this in pricing profiles. So pricing profiles within pricing policy defaults, there's actually an option to input $10, 10 different fields with one drop down. So all you need to do is one drop down and then 10 fields are inputted. So within this general section here, you're going to see some policies, your starting prices, and a few other things. So you want to make sure, if you haven't already, that all of those are filled out. And something that not all clients are using, that if you are a Neatoscan client, that I definitely recommend you look into, is that with that bottom one there, it's probably quite small in your screen, but there's this title template option. And you can use curly brackets to build out an SEO optimized title in one click based on the previous inputs that your listers have placed in. And this is what this looks like in real life. So you can see that we're exiting from our policy section now. We're going to go ahead and open up a Lego listing right now. And then you'll see that there are a whole bunch of different inputs that are already in there. And then to the left of the title, there's this refresh button. When you click this refresh button, you can build that SEO optimized title. So you can see whether it's Upright Labs Builder templates or whether it's Neatoscan's pricing profiles, you can go ahead and remove a lot of repeatable tasks within the software that's going to help save your listers time after your operational analysis. So we've spoken about how to decrease the time to list in the software and some operational tips for volume. Now, Jonathan is going to chat to us about how we can increase price per item and sell-through rate.
All right. So as we get into price per item and sell-through rate, we have a few things we have to consider, right? There are a lot of pieces to that puzzle that we have to kind of analyze and give attention to in order to make sure that we're making the best decisions. Excuse me. When it comes to price per item, for those stores, especially the Goodwill model, where you have suppliers, where the stores are actually giving you those donations, nothing beats just open communications to the store teams about what to sell and to increase the value of the items that are being given over to e-commerce. For those that don't really have that luxury, even within that Goodwill ecosystem, or even those who are non-Goodwill clients of ours, still kind of going through and getting as many of those donations as possible and utilizing as much as possible for e-commerce. There's two ways to approach it, right? And Lori kind of touched on this. We can, we can sell items at a higher price point, but sell less of them, or we can sell as many items as possible and just inundate the e-commerce system with volume and then make our money that way. So there's a couple of ways we have to do it. So we have to analyze our product mix to kind of understand what exactly do we actually have to sell. And then we can utilize listing strategies and insights to determine the proper way to sell these things. Now, for the purpose of simplicity, I'm going to use the term listing strategies, but for our dear Neatoscan customers as well, this is just an extra aspect of the pricing profiles where you can automate the listing and delisting of items at varying price points over the course of time. And so that's what we're speaking about. And these principles apply universally in both systems. So when we look at our listing strategies, again, we're reflecting on our physical space. What does our warehouse space look like? And when we're looking at the warehouse space, more so than the physical space, how does it match up with the product flow? So if I'm looking at my inventory space and I have a huge backlog of product, then more than likely I need a listing strategy that goes through that inventory at a rapid pace. I don't want to hold on to items longer than I need to, because I need to make room for this backlog to get items through the e-commerce life cycle. However, conversely, if maybe the donations are coming in slowly, or maybe I don't really have a backlog and I'm trying to really just take advantage of whatever inventory I can get my hands on as an e-commerce manager, well, then I may take a strategy that's going to allow those items to kind of simmer a little bit and give them more opportunity for the best sell through. So those are some initial thoughts that you want to give when it comes to the physical space of your organization and what you're using. So what does that look like? How does that reflect on your listing strategy or your pricing profile if you're a Neatoscan user? Well, if you're at limited capacity, again, you want to move things a little bit quicker, right? So you're trying to get your inventory moving. And so typically 3 points that lead to that. A lower first step in your lower starting price in your first step. So typically a lower price point, which will increase the chances of that item or that product being sold on that first step. So again, it's not going to linger. We're trying to get it moving on that first step, if at all possible, to get that inventory moved through. This is going to entice more buyers to bid, but still, if we price it correctly, it's still going to lend to a very decent PPI, price per item. And we'll see evidence of that in just a moment. Now, conversely, if I have more capacity in my system, then what I can do is I can have maybe a little bit more aggressive of a starting price, a higher starting price. And Nehemiah, we're going to get to that. Thank you for that question, Nehemiah. We're going to definitely touch it and look at what that can look like. And we're going to give that example strategy. When it comes to that higher starting price, and again, what we're speaking about now, that question actually made me kind of want to reframe this. We're speaking about a general strategy, okay? We're going to talk a little bit more about how you can use strategies to target specific categories of product, but we're speaking about general wares. We're talking about regular collectibles. Your general wear strategy is what we're speaking about here. So if you kind of start that higher starting price and maybe a little bit more aggressive starting price, it might turn away potential buyers on that first step. So you may not get as much sale through on that first step, but if you do, it will yield that higher price per item, and your subsequent steps are also higher as well. So again, you have that advantage of kind of letting that listing linger maybe a little bit longer, but at the same time, guaranteeing that you'll get the highest price per item possible. So let's look at what that will actually look like in a strategy or in a pricing profile. So for example, if we have limited capacity, this is a tried and true listing strategy for general wares that we've seen it work. And we'll see the evidence of that in the next slide. But if starting out at a step of $9.99 at that starting price for a duration of 5 to 7 days, which seems to be the sweet spot, typically is going to get those items, again, moved out a little bit more quickly on the first step. And even if it does go to the subsequent steps, by lowering the price, we're making it more appealing to buyers and more kind of adding that possibility of that item getting moved through and getting a nice sell-through rate. If we have more capacity, you can see that we're starting with a little bit more aggressive of a starting price. So $12.99 to $14.99. Now, in the grand scheme of things, that's not that different than $9.99, right? In the grand scheme of things. However, buyer psychology comes into factor here. And looking at that higher price point for certain items, it may kind of push certain buyers away. However, you can see by starting at that more aggressive starting price, now my subsequent steps are a little bit higher. So even on my subsequent steps, I can still grab that a little bit higher of a price per item than I would if I use the less aggressive approach. And so again, just how long you're willing to hold on to those items really plays into comes into play when it comes into these strategies. So what evidence do we have that this actually works? This is an analysis that we did of our aggressive pricing strategy, this recommendation. And again, this is a general strategy. And these are the highest results that we've seen with this within recent times. Selling off of that first step, price per item of $57 and change, sell-through rate of a little over 88%. Overall results, $48 average PPI, and highest sell-through rate of 99, which is really nice. So we've seen it work. And again, this is a general strategy. With your other strategies, you can, of course, start out at varying price points based on what you're selling. So electronics, things like clothing, things like jewelry, jewelry bags, things of that nature can start out at a higher price point because of the nature of the product and can yield even a better result. So that being said, kind of going to the next slide there, we don't want to just use the general strategy for every category in the system. What happens sometimes is people will use listing strategies or these pricing profiles, but they'll apply the same criteria to their entire product line and then say it doesn't work. Well, no, it's not working because it's not matching the product. So that analysis of like, what exactly do I have to sell? Do I have a ton of clothes? Do I have a ton of electronics? Do I have a great electronics department here? Do I have a lot of jewelry that I'm selling? Where you want to price it accordingly and go according to what you actually have. Aggressive pricing, if you have a little bit more space and can hold on to your inventory a little bit longer. And with both the listing strategies and Upright Labs software, and also with the pricing profiles in Neatoscan, you want to make sure that if you add a fixed price step, that you add it to the end of that step. The only time that I recommend not doing that is with extreme, very well documented analyses of your product offerings. We don't want to tell you how to run your business. You all are experts at what you do. However, we have seen time and time again where organizations will lose out on money because they don't feel that they're going to get the price that they think an item deserves. So don't do it according to feeling. Don't do it according to even what you see other sellers selling at. Are they actually selling? Are they actually selling at these prices? And are we going to giving the market the opportunity to kind of gauge the price and the value of items? Typically, it's going to help you to come out on top when it comes to your price per item. So again, these principles still apply to both Neatoscan, also with Upright Labs, analyzing your space, using that to kind of verify how long you want your listing strategies to be, and also how aggressive your pricing is all going to kind of bring everything full circle to give you the best sell-through rate and price per item that you can get.
Awesome. Thanks for that information, Jonathan. I really loved seeing the specific listing strategy because we get that question quite a lot. So for everyone listening here today, we've spoken about increasing your volume, when you may want to increase that volume, what are the sorts of things you might want to focus on in your operation, and then specific software tools that will reduce that time to list for you. We've also spoken about increasing that price per item and sell-through rate, including the things you're going to analyze in your operation, and then the proven general strategy to increase your sell-through rate and price per item. And then we spoke about some strategy and profile recommendations. So where you're going to go to within the Neatoscan or Upright Labs software, and then a few different tips that apply to both Neatoscan and Upright Labs clients. So that's it from us today, but we'd love to know what questions you have. There's a couple, I'll keep this slide up just for 30 seconds, just so you can scan that to join our next master class. So Addie, who's actually pictured here, she's in the overalls there on the right-hand side. She's our director of client engagements. So leads a lot of build outs, leads audits, also leads a lot of the tailored monthly growth support. She's actually speaking about how to redesign your warehouse. So how to make the most of a small warehouse. So for those of you folks who do have limited capacity, and that's going to be in January. We're taking a break for December just because I know a lot of you are busy throughout the holiday season, but in January, we'll pick that back up. And also we referenced to a few previous sessions. So if you've not watched the previous sessions, please do scan that and it'll be sent to the YouTube where we've got the playlist of all of these masterclasses. So in the meantime, though, looks like we've got a few chats. I'll stop sharing my screen now, but we will be sending out this recording if you wanted to go through that. And let's take a look at the chats to see what questions we have. Also, if anyone has any questions, please do input those now. I can see no one's dropped off. We're all still here, so we're curious. So input any of the questions. So it looks like Nehemiah had, oh yeah, you go, Jonathan.
Yeah, I don't mind jumping in on that one. So this is Nehemiah building on the listing strategy length. I was looking at our guest list. So even amongst the guests that we have online with us today, the lowest that we've seen is literally a one-day auction. Now, the sweet spot that we've seen in our analyses across all of our clients is 5 to 7 days. There's a specific reason why that particular client does what they do. It works for them. So if it's not broke, don't fix it. But we do encourage analysis, a lot of A/B comparison. Also, if you are going to multiple marketplaces, like if you're diversifying your product mix and going to eBay will actually charge you a fee for having an auction that short. So that might be very, a consideration as well. But 5 to 7 days builds enough anticipation, builds enough awareness for that particular item to garner some traction, some attention, and give some opportunity for an actual bid war to start over time that seems to kind of push up the PPI. So that's kind of the 5 to 7 days recommendation, kind of where that comes from, and the method behind the madness.
Great. So it looks like Claire has a question. And Namai, let us know if you have any follow-up questions. Please just shoot us a message in the chat or in the Q&A section. Claire's asked, missed the very beginning, what's Michelle referencing with the 64 an hour? So that is 64 listings per day per lister. And that's the average when we analysed listers who were solely listing, because I was really curious to know what was the average, like if someone's solely focused on listing. So that's what that was referring to, Claire. Now, if you were curious, in terms of top performers, our top performers at both Upright Labs and at Neatoscan are in the 300s. And I think the record was one lister hit over 500. This was referenced at the Shop Goodwill conference, if you were all like, it was over 500 listings for the one lister. So that's the data point there in case you were curious. Oh, hey, Amy. It's nice to see you, Amy. Great. So next question's from Dylan. Is there a report we can run that tells us how many items sell with a single bid in any one category? Do you have that one, Jonathan, or do you want me to dive into that one?
So typically, the report that we recommend to get that type of information that has all of the data points to pull that is going to be your order items reports, if I'm not mistaken. Let me make sure I'm getting the correct wording there. Paid order items report, excuse me. That's going to have the data points that give you your category. It's going to give you your, of course, is going to give you the listing strategy and also what step in the listing strategy that item sold for. So that's going to be your go-to report to kind of get that level of analysis and information. So if you need help with that, please reach out to our support team if you want to kind of get into. We got a couple of folks in our squad that'll really help you really kind of get that information nice and cleaned up. But great question.
Great. And Ginger's asked, what is a reasonable listing goal for a 1 to 2 person team? So Ginger, could you please define 1 to 2 person team overall, or 1 to 2 people that are listing? If it is a 1-person operation, so we have some clients that have a 1-person operation, so the same person accepting items, photographing items, listing items, you want an absolute minimum of 25 items per day. And that would be an ideal average price per item of 35 per price per item. Yep, the 1 person, perfect. Second person is a support person. So 25 per day would be the absolute minimum there. And if I were you, I would be focusing on, and our services team support people with this a lot, I'd be focusing on that time to list, because the challenge that you have in your organization that's a lot smaller is the context switching. So you really want to ensure that person has dedicated time to list and that it's as fast and takes up the lowest amount of cognitive energy as possible. So that would be my recommendation for you. And we do have plenty of 1 to 2 people operation clients doing that. Great. So the next question is from Claire/Amy. And it was a message. Oh, great. Sorry, that was a personal message for me that I just started reading out loud. I need them to be in another color.
I think we have one in the Q&A as well. Juliana, I apologize either way, about a good payment duration. And that you've seen kind of a little bit of variety there. I wouldn't mind jumping into this one a little bit. I don't know if we necessarily have a specific recommendation. We definitely don't want one that's too long, right? Because you don't want to, and by payment duration, I'm assuming that this is payment deadline. So if it's payment deadline that we're speaking about, as far as giving buyers the ability to pay, probably wouldn't go longer than 10 days, which I think is the default with Shop Goodwill, but also like even with eBay, I think their default is like around 4 days, but I wouldn't go too far beyond that. Yeah. Thank you for the clarity there. I wouldn't go too far beyond that. The interesting thing about it is of course that buyer behavior, typically no matter how long you give buyers to pay, they're going to come in at the last day and tell you that they want an extension. So you have to kind of factor that in as well. But I wouldn't go longer than 10 hours. At 10 days for allowing those customers to pay you and get that done. Anything outside of that tends to get a little messy and you can run into a lot more problems on the customer service side of things.
Fun fact, I don't know if you remember this, Jonathan, or you may have, but we did some analysis into the eBay payment duration, and we found that after 4 days, if you extend it by longer than 4 days, based on the amount of time, their likelihood of paying you goes further down and further down and further down. So just to reiterate what Jonathan was saying, 10 days would be the max there. You certainly wouldn't want 30 days. Again, not going to tell you what to do in your operation. However, that is what we found when we analyzed it for Upright clients only. I'm not sure about the data on the Neatoscan clients. Okay, we've got great discussion. So we're a little bit past time. I'd say that we can take another one question after we answer this one. And then if you do have any others, happy for you to send us through any messages, or also to let us know what you want us to speak about in future masterclasses. But I do want to touch on this discussion. So from a psychology perspective, the question is, wouldn't you expect to make auctions a little bit lower in duration to add that sense of urgency, which is a really good call out, because sense of urgency is what a lot of folks use. So for example, we've just had Black Friday and Cyber Monday to generate more sales. So it's a really good call out. And we analyzed the data and we found 5 to 7 days had the highest sell-through rate and had the highest highest price per item. That's what we found, but that doesn't mean that you can't A to B test for your organization. So I'd recommend a minimum sample size of 300 items. I know some of the folks that are speaking have larger organizations, so you have the benefit of being able to do a larger sample size, and feel free to A to B test and figure out what works for your specific organization. But based on aggregate data, we did find 5 to 7 days was the sweet spot there. Great. Do we have any other questions? I've really enjoyed a lot of these questions here. Great. So it looks like the Maya's doing 4 days. If it doesn't sell, gets listed again for 4. And those shorter durations as well work well if you have limited warehouse space and you want to get things through quicker. The average, I know we didn't share the average price per item for the limited capacity example, where it was lower in price to start, but a longer, still the 5 to 7 duration. The price per item was lower there. So just wanted to pop that out there, but that's based on aggregate client data. Every client's different. So
I just wanted to give a really super quick shout out to Mario. The legitimate concern there. But if you see a pattern where you are selling items, but the items are selling at the bare minimum. So I'm actually going to take a look at your strategies after this and kind of take a look. But typically what you have is, like, if you're getting a starting bid of $9.99 and that's what you're winning the bids are, that means that you're selling product that people want to buy. So that's a good thing that you're selling. Now it's an opportunity to maybe bump up that starting price a little bit, because if they're just getting the bare minimum, bump it up to $10.99, $12.99, something like that, and see if you still get that same level of engagement. And if you do, you're still increasing your price per item, even if there is no bid war. So that's kind of the nice little area there with listing strategies, is to not just stick right there. If you see something's not working the way that you want, you're not getting the results, bump it up a little bit, see what happens, do an A/B comparison, and then As Nehemiah says, hashtag get that money. I love that. But yeah, just experiment. And that's the beauty of it. That's kind of the game, right? You have to kind of figure out what exactly is going to work, what's the market is going to tolerate, because you may think 90.99 is where you have to stay, but bump that up a few dollars and you may get the same traction, and now you're making more profit. So yeah, keep that in mind. That's great to keep that analysis though, understand what's actually happening, and ways to kind of mitigate it and see what your next steps are.
Absolutely. This has been a really awesome session. I've loved the back and forth in the chat, the sharing of information, different things that work for different folks. And I think while we have some really great data, and definitely recommend you start out with that, like even in Mario's position, if we bump it up and aren't selling anything, do we then need to take a look at product flow? And we do actually have a previous masterclass on product flow as well that you can review. So we've spoken about a few different things regarding listing strategies. A recording will be sent out to you all very shortly, including a survey as well. So if you have suggestions for future topics, we're open to hearing it. Otherwise, we will see you in January with Addie chatting about warehouse spaces. Thanks so much for joining, everyone. Bye.